Paul's letter to the Romans is just beautiful. I mean, when you go through there and you see what Paul is explaining to us about the very essence of the gospel, about the salvation, the deliverance that we have through Jesus and in Jesus, it's just phenomenal. We could spend a lot of time just going through it. But this, I want to sort of summarize some of what he's saying, focus in on certain things to get us to the point which he is making, that we have been freed from sin. We have been delivered from the death grip that sin has had on our lives. And he's laying this out. He's showing that the gospel is the power of God unto deliverance. So the good news is that you are delivered from that which you could never deliver yourself. In fact, he goes on and he shows that the only way that you could even think you were delivered by your own works is as if you did good works and never did anything wrong or mistaken or unrighteous. Yet, all, he says, have fallen short. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, because we've all sinned. All have sinned and fallen short. And it is the gift that God gives us, and the gift is eternal life. It's righteousness. And through righteousness is where eternal life. But through sin comes death. Now, why is that? Well, one of the things he says in chapter 4 and verse 4 is he says that he's speaking about Abraham and this, about Abraham's belief, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. And then he says in verse 4, now to him who works. So this could be your works, trying to keep the law, trying to do good things, but you also are working other things. You work unrighteousness, you work mistakes, you work what we would call sin, what he would call sin. So now to him who works, the wages, they're not counted as grace. When you work, you earn something. When you work, this is what you get, is what you deserve. It is grace, which is our righteousness and eternal life, is a gift from God. But when you work, you earn something, and he says it is counted as a debt. So we know this already. If you work 40 hours in the week, your employer owes you so much money because of what you've contracted to do. That is the debt that your employer owes you. So Paul is making this point that our work, what we are owed because of our work, is the debt that we have. Well, guess what? All having sinned and fallen short, and the wages of sin is death. The debt that's owed is death. That's what we bring on ourselves. So Jesus comes to pay off our debt. Now notice, this isn't some retribution of God saying, I must have my pound of flesh, or I must have your death in order to be satisfied and joined with you. No, because he declares he's our Father, and that while we were yet sinners, while we were yet enemies, we were saved, we were reconciled, made one, brought back, and restored to where we're supposed to be. He declares our righteousness in the midst of our iniquity and our failures. That's not a retributive thing. And in fact, we're going to get to the very verse that I want to get to, is in chapter 6, where he's explaining to us what we've been delivered from, specifically what we have been delivered from. So let's look at that. We're going to look at, this is the verse for today. It's Romans 6 and verse 6 specifically. He says, knowing this, that our old man was crucified with him, with Jesus. When Jesus died, you died with him. And this is pictured in baptism, which is our burial, and then being raised up, resurrection. It is not Jesus taking my place as much as it is me in Jesus, he in me, that in him I died. So this is what he's saying here. This is verse 6, Romans chapter 6. Our old man was crucified with him, that the body of sin might be done away. Don't lose my place. That we should no longer be slaves of sin. Verse 7, for he who has died has been freed from sin. Paul says elsewhere in Corinthians that if Jesus died for all, then all died. He says here that you died with him. The debt that was owed because of sin was death, and it is paid. It is paid. It was paid. God wasn't requiring that you pay death. This is what sin brings on us, and the debt is paid off. Sin held this over our heads, but you are no longer in debt. It has been paid. And it's not a substitution for you. You died in Jesus. You live in him. You have righteousness in him. There is no condemnation in him. You were created in him. So let this sink in. It all has to do with being in him and how we understand and see in our connection to the truth, to our Father, to Jesus. And in him, you died, you were buried, and you are resurrected to newness of life. And in him, you are freed and no longer a slave of sin. That is the deliverance that you have. And that is what the good news, the gospel, declares.